Now I'm going to explain how to do an understitch. I've constructed most of the parts of my pockets for this skirt, and now it requires me to do an understitch right here. So taking a look at what I have completed here, here's the inside lining of the pocket. This is the outer band to the pocket. This is the facing to the pocket. So we're going to be bringing this around and closing that up, and that will be the inside of the pocket. Okay, but what it's asking is to do an understitch. An understitch is when you move all of the seam allowance towards the lining, or in this case the facing, and we're going to be putting in a stitch right next to the seam. I like to work from the other side, but I wanted to show this side because it's a little bit easier to see where the stitch is going to end up. So it's going to be located just about 1/8 of an inch away from this seam. I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to be working on this side. My seam allowance is to the right. My facing is to the right. I've already ironed this. So at my iron, I just sort of pushed the facing away so that everything goes to one side. I line up my needle to the right of the seam. Here's the seam, and I like to line up the seam with the toe of my presser foot. Your machine might be a little different, but most have a little toe, and if you could line it up with the inside of that edge. We're going to go ahead and back stitch. I like to hold my hands flat and sort of pull the seam apart, which will help it to stretch that facing towards the seam also. I'm going to back stitch. Now what the facing does, what the understitching does is holds the facing away from this outer edge. So when we fold this back, what happens is the understitch forces the outer edge to stick up just a little higher than this edge. That way this facing doesn't show on the other side. Makes a nice crisp, clean edge. Next, I will show you how to stitch this down, and it's called Stitch in the Ditch.